Hello and welcome back to Simply Social Work. My name is Bree. If you're new, today we have another reaction video. You guys know because I'm wearing the headphones. Today I'm reacting to Disney Pixar's Inside Out. And y'all, I have to admit, you're probably thinking this is super out of date. Why is she talking about it? I have a grudge. All right, I'm even gonna take these off to chat. I have a grudge. So a long time ago, galaxy far, far away, I was in a group project for first year psych, and long story short, we had a whole group disagreement about doing Inside Out for our project. It was, most psychology students have done this. Let me know in the comments if you've ever done this project and what you did. It was basically talking about mental health depictions in pop culture. And long story short, we had already chosen, some of us had already started, and other parts of the group wanted to do Inside Out. So I never watched it because the whole thing was really frustrating. You're in school, right? It's overwhelming as it is. And I know from everything I've heard that it's supposed to have some really good mental health depictions, some really good development depictions. And after my last video, To Turning Red, I thought it would be a good idea to follow on that path, right? And to do something maybe a little bit similar. So I've never seen it. It came out, I think, in like 2015. I know it was new, and it was what was being talked about when I was doing this project. So I've never seen it. I know the basics, right? It's been around long enough that you know bits and pieces. But as usual, I am watching it kind of in live time. Never seen it before, and I'll be talking about it from a mental health perspective, from a social work perspective, and we'll see what themes come up along the way, what they do well and what they maybe don't do well. So if you've seen this movie, let me know in the comments as I go what you agree with, what you don't, and let's get to it.
Bundle of joy.
Oh, so Joy got to be first, it sounds like a little bit. So far I really like the way we're showing sort of the inner mechanisms of the brain. That sounds like a memory, which is then going to shape probably some reinforcement and shape how baby sees the world. And I like the cogs, right? We often think of like the wheels turning or the cogs in the brain.
That's fear. He's really good at keeping Riley safe.
That's fear. He's really good at keeping her safe. I like that. Oftentimes we always think of fear as bad, but fear is that body's alert system that stranger danger or danger in general, right? It's kind of that alarm system, and it can keep us safe. I like that. It's automatically the first thing with fear is something positive. Did not see that with sadness. We saw some butting heads, but I like that we showed that with fear. Why is anger a 1950s dad? Not involved, reading the paper. You even got like the shirt sleeves. Why is he a 1950s dad? Is it just me? That's the vibe I'm getting.
And each core memory powers a different aspect of Riley's personality.
I really like how we're doing the memories and the core memories. This is really cute. I like that too, right? They're talking about personality and that different memories or different things that happen to us, positive or negative, can have an impact on our personality, which then kind of make up who we are. Okay, so we got memories, personality, emotions. The floor is lava.
I call that an unqualified success.
Oh, I'm definitely noticing a theme, right? Certain emotions are bad, certain emotions are good. If it's all joyful, it's all perfect. I'm not seeing sadness included, and I'm not often seeing fear or anger included as she gets older either. Interesting.
Which actually was really lucky, because that gave us plenty of time to think about what our new house is going to look like. What?
Definitely sensing where the toxic positivity is coming in, where instead of acknowledging that moving is scary and that she could be upset, she could be nervous, Joy is instantly like, oh no, like let's look at the daydreams, it's going to be perfect, and I love being stuck in a car. Nobody loves being stuck in a car, right? So it's Joy is kind of trying to ensure that none of the bad emotions happen, which is how she maybe views the other emotions, which is how a lot of us view the other emotions.
Dad just left us.
Oh, he doesn't love us anymore. That's sad. I should drive, right? Joy.
Will not let sadness drive.
You've ruined pizza. Faster Hawaiians.
Facts. Facts. 100% all started a debate in the comments. Pineapple does not belong on pizza. Gordon Ramsay said so. Okay? Facts. Let me know in the comments what side of that debate you are on. No, I love pineapple, to be clear. Pineapple's like my favorite fruit. I do not love it on pizza. Inside Out has redeemed itself.
Whoa.
So instantly, right, sadness is bad. Sadness is not allowed to affect anything. And even that, a core memory can't have sadness. Or that makes it a bad memory. Or she's not allowed to think of something and be sad. So we're definitely suppressing sadness, which sounds like a broken record. It does not work. So I'm starting to get a sense of what's going to happen here. Especially at the age she's at, right? She's 11. We're gearing up towards puberty, towards adolescent development, all that kind of stuff.
Crying helps me slow down and obsess over the weight of life's problems.
Okay, if we take a part of that, crying helps me slow down. That's actually really true, right? Crying is a way to relieve stress. It's a very body response. And sometimes we do need to have a cry or to feel what we feel. And when she says obsess about the problems, maybe not necessarily obsess, but it can help us focus in on what's bothering us and work through that. Sometimes you have to sit with that emotion and feel it in order to kind of get to the other side. Right, maybe think of a time when you've been really upset and you've been at a friend's house or even by yourself and you just have a good cry sesh, right? After that fact, there might be some fatigue, you might be feeling tired, but typically you tend to often feel a sense of relief or feel a little bit lighter, or sometimes even just feel that mood elevate because you've let out that emotion and you felt it. And sometimes there can be different thoughts or different answers to your situation that come from just having a good cry.
If you and I can keep smiling, it would be a big help.
I think that's a challenge sometimes, right? A lot of the times our ideas about what good emotions and bad emotions are come from our parents. And a lot of the time there is that mentality, right? Oh, it would be helpful to your dad if we were happy right now, so let's keep smiling through it. As opposed to our stuff being lost in a moving van is stressful. It is frustrating. It could be scary. Leaving your friends behind is sad, right? But we're kind of teaching her that her way to maybe be a good daughter or to be helpful is to just be happy, right? Even when she's not happy, right? We're kind of trying to force happiness on someone who, like Anger said, doesn't really have much to be happy about right now.
Live with me, alright? Make sure that all the sadness stays in the circle. See? You're a pro at this. Isn't this fun?
Tokenism, inclusion at its fineness. Also very ableist perspective as well, right? Again, that sadness is something different and sadness is something that makes joy uncomfortable. So the best way she can help is to stay out of the way, which is not fair or accurate in any way, shape, or form. I also like that fear and disgust got to do things, we often think of them as problematic emotions, and they actually got to be, again, in that helpful way, right? Fear got to prepare for worst case scenarios. Disgust got to make sure that she looked her best, and oftentimes the way that we do present ourselves is with public opinion in mind in terms of, say, fashion and stuff, especially in school, right, when there's bullies and things like that. So two emotions that can be uncomfortable, it kind of showed the positive spin on those emotions, whereas when it came to sadness, Joy can't really see what the benefit of sadness is. And a lot of people have that, again, that toxic positivity idea of sadness is bad and we should just be happy all the time.
Is either quicksand, spontaneous combustion, or getting called on by the teacher.
In that order. Nobody wants to tell you something about themselves. If I could do one thing in this life, it would be to get rid of icebreakers. The minute you ask someone a fun fact about yourself, you become the most boring person in the world, right? It's not the ideal moment for her to be sad and upset about it, but it shows that that really good memory of the family tradition would be tinged with sadness, right? Because she doesn't have that anymore. And if she got to process that last night or got to sit with that last night, she might have been able not to then come to terms with it in front of all her new peers, which when you're 11 is a pretty tough situation. It's pretty, when you're 11, that's not what you want to happen on your first day of school in front of the cool kids, or quote unquote cool kids, right? And in front of your new peers. So it kind of shows you right off the bat, right? You're going to feel it at some point. And you know, just because a memory was positive doesn't mean that that's always going to feel positive. To think about that as your life changes, as your circumstances change. I also really like, because they're animated and get to have their own personalities, I like that sadness sees the value in happy or in joy, whatever. But it's interesting that Joy doesn't see the value in happy. It's a nice little touch.
Did you guys pick up on that?
Okay, I love that it shows that the mom has her own headquarters and all the emotions are seated at the table. So it shows that maybe emotional maturity where they all get to go hand in hand and work together. But I like that we show that it's not just an adolescent development thing, but that it goes on in the adult brain too.
With a nice pass over to Reed.
The only thing that's interesting is it's really playing on traditional gender stereotypes, mom versus dad. Mom goes in soft, dad goes in, he's not paying attention, and then he kind of just goes in kind of aggressive and show of force, and even, his brain's kind of all militaristic and ranking of authority. So that's interesting that they kind of went a little more traditional. I don't know if that's maybe to illustrate their point. They could have different variety of how the emotions all interplay together. I would have maybe liked to have seen something a little bit different, but I guess it does what they need it to do, I guess. But it's a very traditional family, right? Mom, dad in the more traditional roles, and kid, right? We don't see mom talking about a job, actually, particularly the way we see mom unpacking and dad always on the phone on his job still. It's very kind of that cut and dry. In that moment, right, anger got to show a happy emotion to illustrate the anger point. So it shows that different emotions have different memories have different emotions that are all attached to each other.
Except for this bad boy. This one will never fade.
I love that 'cause that's so true, right? I know, me being a Canadian, the house hippo will live in my head forever. It will live in my head forever. I love that. This is actually how abstract thought works. They're just doing it visually. I love that. Part of that is, right, you're deconstructing the idea, the concept of the idea that you've been taught. Okay, so I kind of like this. What they're doing is it's abstract art, and they're kind of going through the stages of abstract art and different kind of abstract arts to talk about abstract thinking, which is really hard to define and to contextualize because it's abstract. That's the whole point, right? It's not black and white, this or this, but loneliness. How do you define loneliness? How do you describe loneliness? What does loneliness feel like? What does loneliness mean to you? My version of lonely and your version of lonely could be very, very different. So instead they're trying to visually show it through different abstract art. I love that. That's really creative.
Participation award.
For sadness. The floor is lava.
I live in Canada.
That's always the joke, right? That's always the thing. Preteens, I know back in the day, it was always in Canada we would do the States, in the States they would do Canada. I say we, not me, but some people would pretend to have a boyfriend or an imaginary boyfriend, and it would be in the other country, right? So you couldn't meet them or wonder why you hadn't met them, right? They were from Canada or they were from the States. That's funny. I really like the way we show anger, especially in development, right? It can be those big blow-ups because anger is really difficult to understand and really difficult to control. So I like the way that we show that as that big explosion of emotion. I also like that we show that during times of stress, during times of change, it's difficult to focus and it's difficult to enjoy the things that we enjoy, right? And they can sometimes even become triggers. She loves her friend but can't talk to her. She loved hockey, but she's fumbling the puck and then she falls. She can't really have her heart into it. So I really like the way that we showed that. Right, so as she's developing her childhood interests, her childhood personality traits, and the things that she stores, we lose those over time. And so we're showing that they go in the memory dump.
I'm okay now.
It's showing the benefit of sadness, right? It's showing the empathy that's coming with sadness, and it's showing that he's remembering those good times. And acknowledging that that's sad, that that's gone now, that he lost that. And then he's okay, because he lets it out.
It was sad, so I listened to what...
People need to be heard, people need to be listened to, people need to be understood, and that includes understanding and listening to our own emotions, right? That's what giving space and sitting with your emotions is all about. I love the visual of the subconscious, where it's all dark. It's where they keep Riley's darkest fears, and there's broccoli. That's so funny. Because a lot of the time, there are certain fears rooted in our subconscious, right? It's not always... Sometimes we don't always know why certain things trigger us or why certain things are fearful of us, right? Because they're kind of locked away, or we think of them as kind of moved away in a subconscious. Locked away makes it sound a lot, like repressed, which is a whole different thing. Repressed thoughts, repressed memories are a whole different topic. But sometimes we do have connections based on things in our subconscious. We're not always aware of what we're doing and why we're doing it. So I kind of like the cartoon way we're showing that a little bit. Obviously a little problematic, right? Our subconscious isn't always inherently bad or awful. It's not just where the dark thoughts go, but it's cute for a kid's movie. Sensing a mildly traumatic childhood memory that now involves a fear. Some people are afraid of clowns. And she remembers him as this big, towering, scary thing when he wouldn't have been that. So that's sometimes how we store memories. I like that. I like the representation here. And that's what we see with kids all the time, right? They don't always make decisions that make sense or that are thought through logically the way we would as adults, because they're ruled by a lot of wild emotions or hormones, which throw everything a little bit out of whack, and they tend to react very emotionally, very impulsively, as opposed to the goal being in adulthood. You develop that emotion regulation and you can kind of logic decisions out. Emotions play a part, but you can kind of logic it out, whereas kids are mainly based by emotion, right? And that reasoning made sense to her based on how she was feeling. So the sad core memory has been forgotten, has been kind of left in the dark, but that's not complete or accurate to her experience. And so she learns that both can happen. A very sad memory can turn into a very happy memory, and that can be something that stays with us for a long time, that through the bad, the supports were there. That can easily be a core memory for friendship and hockey, right? That you can lose and still love the game and still have the support of your family and the support of your team. So this is, again, right, that idea that both of those emotions can exist in the same day. I see what we're doing here. Okay, I like that. It kind of feels a little bit like when we talk about memories that have long been buried, right? There's certain things that, whether you intentionally repress them or just passage of time, right? It's like when someone goes, oh, do you remember that time? And they say it and you're like, I don't really. So then they give you more detail and they talk about it more and more, and then you're like, I think I do remember that, and it starts to kind of come back. This is kind of a good visual representation of that, I think. And also the fact that memory is a very interesting thing, right? There are certain things that we may never remember, whether that be forcefully or otherwise. I'm getting emotional over imaginary friend. Okay. Good job, Disney.
Riley's better off without me! They make everything worse!
That idea that sadness is a bad emotion, right? We've heard that before. I think a lot of us feel that way, right? How many times have you ever apologized for crying, right? That's that inherent idea that that's bad or wrong, when sometimes it's just necessary. Poor sadness. Who's letting this 11-year-old get on a bus, like a Greyhound bus, by herself?
What?
Of course your tiny brain is confused. Guess I'll just have to dumb it down to
Simmer,
your
too.
level.
We're just
Sorry, I don't
boiling.
speak moron.
Sometimes those big outbursts, right, running away, the really big things sometimes that seem really out of place is that long build-up of denying how you feel and always wanting to be positive, or always feeling like you have to always be positive, especially when it's for other people. Well, and that says everything, right? Her parents are like floored and they're really shocked because they had no idea she felt this way. And that's so much pressure on an 11-year-old, right? You can't feel sad, you can't miss home, you have to be happy and like the same things that we did and like the choices that we made, right? When you're 11, you don't get to decide if you're moving or not. Your parents decide that for you, and that can suck. And so she's trying to pretend and force herself to feel differently than she feels, which comes with its own whole host of problems, as we've seen. But then, without being true to herself and her feelings, her parents literally have no idea, right? So they're not even supporting her in the way that she needs to be supported, because they don't even really know that she needs to be supported, right? They think that she's just resilient. And again, I know I've talked about this before, but I think we have this idea that kids are resilient no matter what, and kids bounce back no matter what, and nothing will ever faze them. Or if it does, they bounce back really quickly when they need love and time to adjust and attention and support, right? They're not just resilient because they're young. right? She had core memories in Minnesota. And I like this. I really like the way they're showing this and kind of both aspects of that.
I miss Minnesota too.
And then they can share the experience together. And she knows that it's now not wrong or bad to miss Minnesota, because now she's gotten to learn that her parents miss Minnesota the same way she does. But then that there's still a happiness in sharing the sadness with somebody else. And now we have a mixed core memory.
I like tragic vampire romance, Oliver.
I love the new islands. Now she's starting to get the emotion regulation. She's starting to get a little bit of that healthy emotion where there's different aspects of it, where they interplay, they come together. She's starting to develop. Oh, they pressed puberty. Okay, I'm glad that I got over the grudge. I feel like it's time. I feel like therapist. It's such a bad thing for a therapist to say, right? I got a grudge. We're human, obviously, right? We can have a grudge over a movie. It's fine. But I will say, I thought that was great. Couple things, right? Like I mentioned, I didn't love the gender norms that were kind of really consistent throughout there. Even the way they depicted the emotions, right? Anger was like a 1950s dad. Fear was like the brainy, nerdy guy. Depression or sadness wore like this turtleneck, and joy was in, like a summer dress. And I think that could have been maybe a little bit better. They could have had an opportunity to challenge some of that a bit, and same with the parents, right, and how they were responding and reacting. But otherwise, I loved the way we showed some developmental stuff. I loved the way we showed toxic positivity at its finest, why it doesn't work. Even parental expectations and the impact that can have on kids, on how they think about emotions, on how they think about their own experience, their own behaviors, and in a way that parents don't often realize. And really acceptance in the end, right? That the answer wasn't the parents packed up and moved back to Minnesota, because that's not always real life, but it did show that there's different emotional experiences for different times, right? And sometimes we can't always be happy or just sad. That the good days, right, that core memory had some sadness to it in the beginning, and that all spectrums of that emotion sometimes come into play in a single day, and that's okay. So I really enjoyed it. I thought that showed a lot of good messages for mental health for the target demographic, which was kids or youth, right? So that is my take. That is my reaction to Disney Pixar's Inside Out. Let me know in the comments, what did I miss? What did you agree with? What did you disagree with? What did you like? And let me know what you would like me to react to next. Take care.